What's up, guys? My name is Michelle, and today is Tuesday, February 7th of 2023. And today we are going to look into the idea of Human 2.0, what transhumanism is, and how it's connected with the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So, we're going to jump right in to the first article, which is Human 2.0 is coming faster than you think. Will you evolve with the times? And this comes out of Forbes, and tellingly, it is in the category of AI, because Human 2.0 and AI are linked, which is a very important detail in all of this. So it's letting me know this article is 4 years old, so in some ways it's old news, October 1st, 2018. But I still think it has a good summary of transhumanism and Human 2.0 and what's going on. So, our technology, our machines, is part of our humanity. Author, computer scientist, and inventor Ray Kurzweil once said, sorry if that's butchering it, your last name, "We created them to extend ourselves, and that is what is unique about human beings. In the past few years, there has been considerable discussion around the idea we are slowly merging with our technology, that we are becoming transhuman, with updated abilities, including enhanced intelligence, strength, and awareness." Now, real quick, I just want you to think about that. Like, really, we think that we can create technology that can do better than nature, that can make us more intelligent, can make us stronger and be more aware. Do you really think human beings are more capable than nature? That's the whole thing with this Human 2.0. You have to believe that nature's taking too long on evolving the human, so we need to intervene. Getting back to the article. Considering Kurzweil's words is a good place to begin this discussion. It's no secret that Google has transhumanistic aspirations. I clicked on that link though, and it's a Wikipedia page, so not worth your time. In 2011, Stephen Levy made this bold statement about the company in the book In the Plex. From the very start, its founders saw Google as a vehicle to realize the dream of artificial intelligence in augmenting humanity. Naturally, it makes sense Google would bring on Kurzweil to be its director of engineering in 2012. For years, he has been pushing the cultural conversation toward the idea of human transcendence, with thought-provoking books The Age of Spiritual Machines and The Singularity is Near, When Humans Transcend Biology. I don't know, I give nature way more credit. I think this is crazy and hubris of the highest order. But, that's just my opinion. Although Kurzweil has gained much notoriety for proposing provocative ideas in the latter book, such as the singularity will represent the culmination of the merger of our biological thinking and existence with our technology, resulting in a world that is still human, but that transcends our biological roots. The term singularity originated in a 1993 essay, The Coming Technological Singularity, by science fiction author and professor Werner Vinge. Wow, what a name. Werner Vinge. So, yeah, going back, our biological roots transcend. That's a very religious word, to my estimation. I'm going to just double check. Everything's good on the live. All right. To truly grasp the significance of Vinge's thinking, it's important to realize that it's important to realize where we were as a society in the early 1990s. Back then, the invention of smartphones and social media platforms were years away. The internet itself, now so vital to all aspects of our life, communication, commerce, and entertainment, was in its infancy. Yet here was Vinge boldly proclaiming, within 30 years we will have the technological means to create superhuman intelligence. Shortly after, the human era will be ended. Well, again, though, is a science fiction writer. So why are we trying to bring that science fiction dystopia to life? I have no idea. Just consider, here we are, a little shy of 30 years from Vinge's prediction, and the reality of transhumanism has not just caught on with the general public as a distinct possibility. It has become a living, breathing reality. Recently, Michael Ashley, my co-author of the upcoming book Uber Yourself Before You Get Kodak, a modern primer on AI for the modern business, and I sought to tap into the cultural zeitgeist on this subject by interviewing Ben Goertzel. Goertzel is just the right person to speak about human potential in the age of AI. The founder and CEO of SingularityNet, Goertzel is also the chairman of the Artificial General Intelligence Society and the OpenCog Foundation. Along with David Hansen of Hansen Robotics, Goertzel co-created Sophia, the first robot to gain national citizenship. Oh, I've checked out Sophia. I know what that bitch looks like. Like Vinge and Kurzweil, Goertzel is fascinated by the idea of transhumanism and makes the case it's not just pie-in-the-sky conjecture. Transhumanism has been occurring for some time, albeit in analog form. In a way, it's happening bit by bit. Goertzel said, "If you take my glasses away, I become heavily impaired. I can't participate in the world." Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. You just have to adjust like they did back in the day. But yes, that technology is nice. But you can take the glasses off. See, that's the main difference. Technology that enhances that is not a part of your body, like a chip in the brain, Neuralink. It's a lot different. You can't take a chip out of your brain. Let's go. Where are we at? Goertzel also points to more recent developments to illuminate the subtler ways we have been merging with computers in recent years. And of course, if you take the smartphone away from my wife or kids, they will go into withdrawal and also become heavily impaired. That's pathetic. It's pathetic. You should have a library. And if they don't have their phone, they should pick up a book. Like this one, To Be a Machine. Talking about transhumanism. Mark O'Connell gives you a ton of rabbit holes to go down for yourself, so a good collection of information at the very least. Getting back to this article. Still, many people fear transhumanism. Critics warn of designer babies and chips implanted in our minds. Theologians fear we might degenerate the soul's sanctity by achieving immortality. Not by achieving immortality, because we ain't going to, but even by attempting it. Why are we attempting to go against the laws of nature? Everything dies. Our energy gets recycled. It gets reused, you know? Evaporation, precipitation, condensation on my mind. Anyway. The same thing. Theologians fear we will degenerate the soul's sanctity by achieving immortality. Yeah, that is crazy. We're not going to achieve immortality. In the early 2000s, death is not a disease to be cured. It's not. It's just a fact of life. And thank God for that. In the early 2000s, the editors of Foreign Policy asked policy intellectuals, what idea, if embraced, would pose the greatest threat to the welfare of humanity? Francis, professor of international political economy at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, pointed to transhumanism, calling it the world's most dangerous idea. Writing for Psychology Today, Massimo Pigliuccio, he stated, I hope that's a he, there are several problems with the pursuit of immortality, one of which is particularly obvious. If we all live much, much longer, we all consume more resources and have more children, leading to even more overpopulation and environmental degradation. Well, see, I think his premise is wrong. It is a dangerous idea, but not because of overpopulation. I don't believe that that could ever happen. Again, I know nature has its own safeguards, and there's rules to this game, and, you know, I don't think we could ever I know that we can never outfuck the planet's resources. No matter the intellectual misgivings surrounding this controversial topic, the fact remains that if we view transhumanism the way it is conventionally defined, people have been evolving toward an updated version of humanity for some time. In some ways, we already operate as human-machine hybrids. If a caveman came into the modern world, he would be astounded at how symbiotic we are with the various machines we use. We use cars to get from point A to point B, and air conditioners to regulate our temperature. Excuse me. In Hong Kong, at least, you never see anyone who's not holding a phone in their hand and staring at it. But there may be other, more pragmatic reasons why we need to become transhuman, if only to stand up to the intelligent machines that are coming. Early on, Elon Musk sounded the alarm about humans being usurped by artificial intelligence in a series of well-publicized warnings. Since then, he has suggested that the only way not to be overtaken by computers is to merge with our creations. Yeah, his venture, Neuralink, is in development precisely for this purpose. Meant to combine human brains with computers, it's his attempt to symbiotically join our minds with the machines. The merge scenario with AI is the one that seems like probably the best. He recently said on the podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, if you can't beat it, join it. Yeah, Elon Musk and Klaus Schwab want the same thing. How they get there might be different, but they both want a fourth industrial revolution where we merge man and machine. Human 2.0, we evolve ourselves. This crazy hubris, trust the science. And yet not natural science. Never trust natural science. Yeah, if you can't beat it, join it. How dangerous an idea. AI could never beat us unless we join it. Because AI is a weak copy of ourselves. All our data is discovered. You just read any book on writing. They don't create those stories from nothing. They were there already and discovered. Like, they pulled it out of the ether, so to speak. AI can't do that. They pull it out of us. AI pulls it out of us. So it's limited to the person programming it. As you can see, if you look at ChatGPT, it's programmed with a heavy bias. Because the people in the media in control of things and in these companies are heavily biased. So there's huge weaknesses, and putting a chip in our brain and having the AI be that close to us is insane. A visionary himself, Gortzel, I've already been saying this and now I've just forgot it. I'm a fool. Gortzel, that's what I've been saying, that's what I'm going with. Gortzel has long foreseen Musk's vision coming, yet he urges caution in its implementation. The next step to take is to wire these machines directly into the brain and body rather than have them held in our hands. Clearly this takes time and thought because you need to be careful with sticking wires into human brains and bodies. But that work is being done and it's going to take more than a decade. And it's not going to take more than a decade. Which is true because this is 2023 and Elon Musk is talking about doing another human, like a more extended human trial, because it's already been in one person's brain, but now he's gonna, I don't know, accept volunteers or something. He's gonna do a bigger data pool, put more chips in more people's brains this year. So it's definitely not taking a decade. They want all this done by 2030, in case you haven't noticed that number 2030 comes up quite often. Returning to Vinge's, why do I want to say pre-science? At the end of the 20th century, we can see he was imagining a future that would occur even sooner than he predicted. If we take Gortzel at his word, we are through the Fukuyamas and other hand-wringing stage. We're now at the point to think about practicalities. Technology slows down for no one. Whether we like it or not, there is a pre-smartphone and a post-smartphone world. Presumably, we all know someone who was loath to adopt a new technology. It's likely their business even suffered until they began using an iPhone or Android, or got swept aside by adapters willing to change with the times. Are we at the precipice of a similar phenomenon? Are we staring down the gulf at human 2.0? Well, I'm just going to tell you, there's no way that I'm going to change with the times on this one. I'm not putting a chip in my brain. And if that means I have to live in the woods off the land or something and have no technology at all, whatever. I'm not putting a chip in my brain. So I'm going to be left behind. To put this dilemma in clearer focus, Gortzel advises considering the question, not from your perspective, but from your child's. Well, since most people aren't having children or can't have children in the West, I don't know if we'll need to worry about that. He paints a picture. Imagine it's 8 years from now. All the other kids in your daughter's 3rd grade class are way ahead of her because their brains are connected directly to Google and a calculator, and they're SMSing back and forth by Wi-Fi telepathy between their brains while your daughter sits there in class being stunted because she must memorize things the old-fashioned way and can't send messages brain to brain. Oh my goodness. What a thing. You can't have your brain waves read at all times by whoever, either authorized or unauthorized. Will you know? Dangerous. You don't want your child to be left behind. No child left behind. That worked out great. Government taking over. Even more. It was already taken over. Anyway, Gortzel suggests you consider what you would do if your daughter's teacher brought you in for a parent conference and told you your daughter couldn't keep up with her classmates. Imagine she suggested some form of upgrade. You love your daughter. You want what's best for her. What would you do? At this point, the prospect of transhumanism stops being an intellectual exercise. It becomes a question of substance. I don't think that the people that have children will put a chip in their brain. And I don't think that they'd be in government school where they'd have to worry about competing with other brain-chipped children. I'm assuming they would be competing against other natural kids. It'd be 2 societies if that's allowed to happen. I'm kind of like people teaching their children at home now, homeschooling, rather than sending their children to government school. Some people are still sending them to government school. That's their choice. That should be the parents' choice. The children are the parents. They're not the states. So if the parents want to send them to government school, then they can. Do I think it's stupid? Yeah, but who the hell am I? It's not my kids. But I really appreciate this movement that's going towards homeschooling. I think that women with children are becoming more aware and thus more intelligent, and they're able to do something. So that's why the first step is always awareness. And most people aren't aware of what's going on, so until we get them all aware, then we can come up with a solution. And it'll be at the last second, I'm sure. All right, next article. This is Desert News. Because it says church news at the top, I think that this might be some kind of theist site, but I'm not going to let that stop me from reading this article. They're allowed to have their perspective as well, and I think it's an interesting one. So I'm going to jump into this article that was written January 28th, 2023, or at least published January 28th. Perspective: a future for me and not for thee, the hubris of transhumanism. Some researchers in longevity science are trying to bypass the biological limits of the human body with no regard for the soul. And I agree with this. I don't go to church, and, I'm not Institutionalized religion, not my thing at all. I have complete distrust of it, but that doesn't mean that the idea of God or the ideas in the Bible are wrong or anything else. So I'm just gonna get into the article. It's okay to be secular, it's okay to be non-secular. If you had enough money to buy everything, would there be anything you couldn't buy? For the ultra-wealthy of America, the answer is increasingly no. Billionaires Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and Peter Thiel all seem convinced, if you follow the money, that you can even buy eternal life, or rather a never-ending mortal existence. They are reportedly investing in startups that are trying to slow or stop aging and disease, and their money is starting to produce results. Time recently ran an article detailing the outcome of a 13-year study in the field of what is called aging longevity science by Australian biologist David Sinclair, a professor of Harvard University. Sinclair is among the authors of the study, published earlier this month in the journal Cell, which examined a treatment that both reversed and accelerated aging in mice. The breakthrough came in our understanding of the epigenetic instructions within cells, or the codes our cells use to make skin cells turn into skin cells, and brain cells into brain cells from the same DNA. Researchers believe that animal cells and eventually human cells can be rebooted through these codes as if they were little machines in order to accelerate or decelerate aging. While this discovery is on the surface positive, it ultimately leads us closer to what is called transhumanism, the blending of the human body with technology, and in such a world the solutions to our problems become the problems themselves. It's very true. Transhumanism aims to march past the current biological limits of humanity through technological and medical advances. In transhumanism, death is not an inevitable part of existence, but a condition to be treated or even engineered out of our systems. Right, like we're just a computer and the brain is all that matters, data points is all that matters. The soul and like where you discover the poetry, where you discover the writing, where you discover the music, all that is supposedly in your brain. Give me a break. An example of these technologies is Elon Musk's Neuralink, which builds technologies to synchronize our brains with computers. Cryonics are another pseudo-technology in which anyone with enough money can freeze their body, yes, just like Han Solo, in hopes that the future will have the technology to resurrect them. Peter Thiel reportedly plans to do so upon his death, just in case he dies. Some people freeze their whole bodies, others just their brains. Honestly, that's the very beginning of this book. It starts with him going to where they freeze bodies, and it's not just the brain. It's like they decapitate the head, and they freeze the head. How sick is that? So that way, you know, in 25, 50, 100 years, then you can unfreeze their brain and boot it up to the computer to live forever. Because your consciousness resides in your brain. How silly does all that sound to you? I don't know. To me it sounds silly. Maybe I'm wrong. Please let me know in the comments. This stuff fascinates me. The topic fascinates me. But I do have my own biases. And I love nature. I love going out on walks. And it's a damn miracle when you actually think about everything that's going on in your woods. Everything that's going on this plane of existence is a miracle. So thinking that we have power to do such things is crazy. And then another thing to consider for these people freezing themselves and freezing their brains, well, rather their heads, their decapitated heads, is how selfish is it? If in 100 years we have that technology to have somebody unfreeze you and boot you up, like, how are you expecting someone to do such a thing for you? Because you paid in dollars in 2020, whenever you get your head chopped off and frozen. Like, that's crazy. You think the cash money or whatever is going to be the same in 100 years and that somebody's going to want to take the time to unthaw you, and then if it's your whole body and somehow you can, which this is all sci-fi, okay? It's just sci-fi. But you could somehow unfreeze your body and walk around. You're going to live 100 years from now. It's going to be so different. You are expecting someone in the future to take care of you, to help you adjust to society. Like, all these things it's really selfish. And that's the main thing. This is all narcissistic, selfish bullshit. And that's my take. In a recent podcast with Lex Fridman, billionaire polymath Baliar, explains a theoretical technology he calls genetic reincarnation, in which you could theoretically synthesize your DNA or genome sequence and print someone out from disk. He says it's like a clone, but it is you in a different time. Once your genome is reprinted into a hypothetical new body, you could see videos of yourself and formulate memories based on records from your previous life. Thus, according to Srinivas, you become reincarnated in a body with the same DNA and with old memories downloaded to your new body. You see, this is the problem with not living in reality and not adhering to natural law and just going down these sci-fi paths that can never be verified, and like, it's crazy science fiction what the imagination can come up with. And now, I know human beings, you think of something and then you work to bring it about, but there are rules. Just like when you are creating a video game, it's not just free range, there are rules to creating that video game. There are rules to this video game for your soul, and all this goes against those rules and thus cannot be. And do we really want them to be? Like, we need to ask that question. Even if we could do this crazy stuff, is this what we want? And why? Shouldn't we get back to nature? Shouldn't we live more like hobbits, where we live within the ground, within nature, not underground like dwarves? No way. I mean, the whole point is try to balance instead of go full on the Matrix into technology. Balance. Please, can we get back to some balance? But yeah, these people waste their entire lives thinking these things that can't be done, when they are really smart. And if they would just learn the natural laws and adhere to them, and then figure out how to best use them to serve humanity positively, like, that is possible 100%. But this shit right here, it's a waste of time. Kind of like trying to go to Mars or some stupid shit like that. The space, the final frontier, it's all a waste of time if you really think about, why don't we create beautiful things? Why don't we try to figure out how to create the buildings that they had even in Chicago in the 1800s before the fire? Maybe it was a little before that. I should know by now, but my point being, in our past, there has been some beautiful architecture, and now we create brutalism buildings. It's junk. Why don't we stop going so far into the Matrix and start building here in the real world again? And using this technology to help us build in the real world, not throw ourselves into the Matrix. Back to the article. I'm sorry for the rant. Thus, according to I just did this, I know. Srinivas. You're becoming reincarnated in a new body with the same DNA, with the same memories downloaded to your new body. Again, reincarnated using what I refer to as like a religious word. And that's the thing, this transhumanism is kind of like a religion. Just replaces Christianity. Of course, amid these discussions, the most important questions, the metaphysical ones, are often ignored. As he discusses longevity and genetic reincarnation with Friedman, he brings up Oscar Wilde's 1890 novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, which I need to read. I heard it's amazing. The book is about a beautiful young man so obsessed with looks and hedonism that he sells his soul so that his portrait might age, while he lives on forever in his youth. Srinvasan uses this story, as a metaphor for what he calls our limited understanding of what might be. We don't have to age like the picture of Dorian, he says. We don't have to build wings like Icarus, which melt as they approach the sun. We fly commercially every day. What he gets wrong, however, is that the decomposition of the picture does not reflect Dorian's age, but the deterioration of his soul. His body lives on in youth, while his soul languishes in dark ugliness on the canvas. This is the essential problem of transhumanism. The longevity of the body comes at the expense of the soul. Conveniently, the soul is a concept that transhumanists increasingly reject. Transhumanism is a philosophy that looks for a future for me, but not for thee. The philosopher Roger Scruton calls this the ultimate act of cowardice, saying that it exhibits a monstrous selfishness in refusing to relinquish the planet to their successors, and choosing instead to burden the earth with their unappealing presence for all time. Interestingly, Musk doesn't believe in the purchase of eternal mortality. I don't think we should try to have people live for a really long time, he has said. It would cause asphyxiation of society, because the truth is, most people don't change their mind. They just die. So if they don't die, we will be stuck with old ideas and society won't advance. Wow. You know, I agree with Musk. That seems like that's what would take place in a way. Like, but that's the thing. Do most people don't change their mind? Do you agree with that? I want to be an optimist and say no, people can change their minds, but realistically, after 34 years, yeah, most people don't change their mind. But maybe that's just anecdotal. Let me know in the comments, please. There are, of course, old ideas that have been proven to be of great worth. For example, eating proper foods and caring for the body as a means living to the natural end of one's lifespan. But we cannot buy eternal life, and we should never want to buy eternal mortality. Let us not forget the end of Dorian Gray. As his sins begin to mount, he seeks to destroy the painting that revealed them. He takes a knife and cuts through the heart of the canvas. The next day, his friends and family find a decrepit and unrecognizably old man stabbed through the heart under the painting of Dorian in his youth, fresh as the day it was painted. I'm sorry about the spoiler. I guess I should have said that. I didn't realize it was going to do that. But I still want to read the book, so hopefully you do too, because it's all about the prose and how the message is delivered, not just the message. And I heard Oscar Wilde's got the prose down. Haven't read any of his works yet, but I want to. Alright, next up, Slate. Again, I don't know anything about Slate. Uncannily undiminished. Yep, I don't know if this is biased one way or another. I just saw the title, and I'm going to be honest, and I thought this seems very interesting. It was written January 26, 2023. It's the unlikely alliance between tech bros and radical environmentalists. And it makes sense why they're an alliance. After we read this, you'll see why too. On December 13th, 2018, Richard Branson stood in the Mojave Desert, eyes fixed skyward as he witnessed the culmination of a lifelong dream. His space tourism company, Virgin Galactic, had sent an aircraft into suborbital space. For Branson, the launch was not merely proof of concept for his latest business venture. It signaled that humanity was on the edge of a fundamental breakthrough. Today, we have shown that Virgin Galactic can open space to the world, he declared. Yeah, suborbital space. I need to look into exactly what that means as far as how high up. 4 days later, the prominent philosopher Todd May published a short article in The Stone, a philosophy series run through the New York Times opinion section. Would human extinction be a tragedy? Asked readers to consider the possibility that the demise of humanity might be morally desirable. Human beings are destroying large parts of the inhabitable earth and causing unimaginable suffering to many of the animals that inhabit it, May observed. So the solution is just to die. If all humans just died, instead of humans can change and they can choose good over evil, and they can learn from their mistakes because they have memory, as short as it seems to be. We do have memory. From this, the philosopher concluded that although human extinction would be a tragedy, it might just be a good thing. The article was arguably the first to advocate for human extinction in a mainstream publication. Yeah. As we're going to see, yeah, it's very anti-human. And the whole green movement is very anti-human. It's like, yeah, we're destroying the earth. Whereas to me, this earth was made for us. This plane of existence was made for us to observe and appreciate. Or not. We don't have to appreciate it. And a lot of us don't. But that doesn't mean we are right for not appreciating it. To the casual observer, Branson and May and their ways of thinking don't have much in common. Richard Branson is a technology mogul who dreams of colonizing Mars and has flirted with digital immortality by uploading his mind using artificial intelligence. Todd May is a moral philosopher whose work aims to help human beings confront death with dignity, sharing none of Branson's enthusiasm for space exploration or eternal life. Yet, a new book from the Wall Street Journal editor Adam Kirsch, The Revolt Against Humanity, argues that both radical environmentalists like May and radical technologists like Branson are in effect cheering for humanity's end. The Revolt Against Humanity, that book, I'm gonna look into it and probably buy it. Maybe you might want to look into it too. It seems interesting to me. Their views are reflective of what we might call the new misanthropy that pervades corners of our cultural life in the 21st century. And such beliefs are more widespread than you imagine. On the surface, these competing visions of humanity's future, which Kirsch calls anthropocene, anti-humanism. I'm sorry that I butchered that because I've never seen that word before. And I don't even know what it means. Let's see. Relating to or denoting the current geological age, viewed as a period during which human activity has been dominant influence on climate and the environment. Oops. Third one. In Silicon Valley, transhumanism, respectively, couldn't be more different. The first camp encompasses radical environmental organizations like Earth Liberation Front and the Voluntary Human Extinction Movement. Wow, I didn't know such a movement existed. How crazy. Why don't... yeah, I don't want to say that. Whose founder, Les Knight, recently received a glowing profile in the New York Times, as well as pro-extinction academic philosophers like May, David Benatar, and Patricia McCormick. It can even be glimpsed in popular bestsellers like Richard Powers' Pulitzer winner, The Overstory, in which a dendrologist is tasked with answering the question, what is the single best thing that a person can do for a sustainable future? Her response is to drink a glass of poison, committing suicide. Wow. And it was a Pulitzer winner. I mean, that is very anti-human. How about instead of writing books, she does that if she really believes that? That's crazy. I mean, if you think about the hypocrisy of that, oh yeah, everyone should just kill themselves, then why haven't you done it yet? And I don't want you to do it, please. Never. Self-deletion is a terrible tragedy. Life is the most precious thing that you could ever have, and to cast it away is a terrible, I don't want to say sin, because that sounds so, yeah. But it's a terrible sin. It's a missing of the target, as Jordan Peterson would say. Because you should appreciate life, as hard as it is, as much suffering there is in the world. We must try to be grateful, because life is the only thing we can create money. We can't create time, and we can't create life unless we procreate. And AI is not life and never will be. According to the most extreme versions of this anti-humanist belief system, man is a uniquely unpleasant kind of chimpanzee, slouching toward a wasteland of its own making. In this telling, the future will be the scene of a revenge fantasy. The earth has long been denuded. Denuded? Again, never heard of such a word. Let's see. I'm sorry that I keep breaking, but I want to make sure I understand what the hell is being said.
Denude.
Denude. That makes sense. That's logical, since it's like, yeah.
Denude.
Past tense, denuded. Okay. Strip something of its covering, possessions, or assets. Make bare. Okay, so the earth has long been denuded and debased by our machines, bled of its mystery by the enlightened scalpel of man, and our blood is the price we must pay for the planet's resurrection. Wow. That is something. Adherents counsel that we should welcome the demise of humankind by self-induced climate catastrophe, celebrating Gaia's reprisal against her most miserable offspring. Some even argue that we are morally obligated to take up our cross, drive our own nails, and shuffle off this mortal coil so that wildness can again prevail across the earth. We are not a good species, Knight told the New York Times. We're smart enough. We should know enough to end it. Jesus, help us. I can't believe that people are like this. That people can think in such a way. Why have all of the beautiful things on this plane of existence without somebody to, again, appreciate it or not, to choose to love it or to hate it? If it just existed, what would be the purpose? I think that's why we are here, is to appreciate it or not, to observe it, to discover nature, intelligent design, God, whatever you want to call it, discover it in every aspect of life, because it is in every aspect. And then again, to appreciate it. It's hard, but we gotta be grateful. Grateful for this existence. And we can make it better, you know? It's not like we have to make it worse. We can do better. We can make it better. But it's about individual actions. It's not about collective actions. The second very different group Kirsch examines is composed of influential futurists, respected academics, and members of the tech elite who enthusiastically embrace space colonization, longevity therapies, and mind upload technologies that promise to fundamentally transform what it will mean to be a human being in the future. They subscribe to a philosophical belief called transhumanism, predicated on the idea that we should use novel technologies to hasten humanity's evolution into a new, superior successor species. Those whose beliefs fall under the transhumanist label, whether or not they would claim the phrase themselves, include billionaires like Branson, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Peter Thiel, world-renowned existential risk scholars like Anders Sandberg and Nick Bostrom, in the news of late for a horribly racist email, and futurists like Ray Kurzweil. Unlike the anti-humanists, these transhumanists believe that the future of humanity will be glorious if only we can figure out how to transcend the material limits of the bodies and planet we inhabit. Yeah, it's like, it's not being grateful at all. It's being resentful of the limitations of the material world, instead of understanding those limitations and embracing them, you know, like embracing the shadow and integrating it. It's the same thing. Like, yeah, okay, it sucks. When I was young, I wished that I could have been a boy, because all of the kids in here were boys, and so sometimes I was left out because I was a girl. Shit happens, but thankfully my mom said there are good things about being a woman and you can't change it. Well, about being a girl, because at the time I was like 8 or 10 or something, but maybe even 10 or 12. It might have been 10 or 12, but either way, I was feeling very self-conscious about being a young girl and wishing that I wasn't excluded and wanted to be a boy. And my mom told me the truth, that I can't change it. It doesn't matter how much I rail against the natural law of things. I was born a woman, and so you just have to embrace it. And you know what? I'm very thankful now that I'm a woman. But I'm thankful that there are men in the world. I am thankful for the rules. And I like to observe the truth and the rules. According to transhumanists, man is not a terrestrial parasite, but a star god waiting to be born. For them, our species stands before a darkling plane that is at once its birthright and its destiny. The universe itself, the secular faith, holds that it's humanity's sacred duty to populate the vacant cosmos, to take a rightful seat upon its rude furniture, and install mind where there was before only the silence of brute matter. Yet, as with the anti-humanists, the price of such a magnificent future is death, this time by self-directed evolution rather than extinction. Through the miracle of technology, transhumanists believe the human species must orchestrate its obsolescence so that some worthier, digitized human form might emerge, phoenix-like from its shadow. Humanity is dead. Long live humanity. Again, to me it sounds terrible and completely sci-fi. And I hope it stays sci-fi, but the fact that so many people are wasting their money, energy, time, thought, life on such frivolous shit makes me sad. When we could figure out how to turn salt water into fresh, figure out how everybody on this earth can have cheap, if not free energy, so that we can expand and do good. Like, people want to do good, but if they're struggling to put food on their table every day, well, that's what they're thinking about. But if they don't have to worry about that, then there's more minds going towards hopefully good things. But so far it seems like with excess comes terrible thoughts, suicide pods, and all kinds of really anti-human thought. And is it because of what Nietzsche said, the death of God in the minds of man? Perhaps. Perhaps this is all a spiritual battle. Although Kirsch spells out their differences in meticulous detail, he mainly focuses on what these competing images of the future share, emphasizing that both imagine worlds from which they have disappeared, and rightly so. Yet the revolt against humanity spends little time addressing the far more interesting question: why are these profoundly misanthropic ideologies ascendant in the early 21st century? Explaining the cause of anti-humanism and Silicon Valley transhumanism is not Kirsch's primary objective, and he largely leaves the question of their etiology unattended. In my view, however, the root cause of the new misanthropy is quite apparent. We live in a secular age amidst a declining empire, and most of us no longer believe in the human project. Domestically, Americans are confronted with spiraling political dysfunction that makes any talk of national unity seem not simply naive, but absurd. Internationally, the moral clarity provided for half a century by a bipolar world, which pitted American freedom against the Soviet gulags, is long in the rear view. The Cold War's black and white geography has today been replaced by a multipolar world order in which corrupt oligarchies, including the U.S., jockey not for ethical or ideological legitimacy, but for naked power. Meanwhile, governments around the world have proven unable and unwilling to reach even the most basic compromises that might help slow the relentless warming of our planet. Well, I don't agree with that, but moving on. Confronted with such circumstances, it's no surprise that invocations of humanity as a collective project are seen as passé or problematic. Indeed, many scholars and activists argue that any talk about humanity inherently papers over the differences, particularly the very real differences in access to thriving and security, that determine the haves and have-nots in a world dominated by planetary-scale capitalism, whose externalities, particularly its environmental externalities, are largely borne by the global poor. Wow, okay. Sorry, this is quite long. Where was I? To be clear, my point is not that these criticisms are wrong. I agree that appeals to humankind often traffic in facile universalisms. Rather, my point is that the 21st century misanthropies, whether the
Anthropocene.
Anthropocene. Now I lost it. Or Silicon Valley varieties do exactly that, which is what makes them so seductive. What both of these misanthropic accounts offer, in contrast to the dominant culture, is a coherent conception of humanity's significance in the world. In the instance of anti-humanism, the human species is the snake in the garden, the principal antagonist in the story of the Earth and the lone obstacle of a planetary Eden. In the case of transhumanism, humankind is a gateway species that stands at the threshold of a cosmic Valhalla. In each account, humanity is shot through with profound meaning. Our fate is the fate of the planet, even the universe. Of course, we are acculturated. Man, I'm having a rough one with this. To view such nakedly unsentimental visions of humanity as coldly rational, a tendency Kirsch indulges despite evidence that transhuman is scientifically dubious. According to his reading, the revolt against humanity inspired by rationalist values that place a premium on freedom and reason. In this way, Kirsch accepts the standard story about modernity, that ours is an era of disenchantment, in which the old myths and irrationalities have been crushed under the boot heel of enlightened techno-science. Yet, by accepting at face value the purported rationalism of the new misanthropy, Kirsch fails to appreciate its essentially theological, even cultic character. When Musk declares that he is motivated by a duty to maintain the light of consciousness, for example, the SpaceX CEO sounds less like an enlightened rationalist than a technological shaman. Ugh, gosh. Of all the titles, technological shaman is attributed to Elon Musk.
The devil's champion. Anti-humanist emissaries like Musk and Teal or May and Knight might preach from the pulpit of pure reason, but their worldviews are suffused with religious zeal, with the promise of enchantment. We will not have understood this new misanthropy. We will not have understood this new misanthropy until we recognize that its seduction lies in its promise of an enchanted world to come. Its ectopian visions of the forests returning to displace. Jeez! Some cities, man. Return of some cities. It's prophecy of a digital paradise where minds will have been untethered from the burden of bodies. You know, it is good writing, but saying these words... In William Faulkner's Nobel Prize acceptance speech, delivered in 1950 amid the opening convulsions of the then nascent nuclear age, the novelist spoke to the apocalyptic anxieties that dominated the post-war period. Our tragedy today is a general and universal physical fear, Faulkner declared. Then he added, there are no longer problems of the spirit. There is only the question, when will I be blown up? In the 21st century, the fears Faulkner speaks of have only magnified, and so too the sense that we live in a world in which questions of human meaning have been displaced by questions of human survival. Here, the new misanthropy draws a sharp contrast to the reigning pessimism. These secular theologies provide coordinates of transcendental meaning, even if that meaning is life-denying and humanity-debasing, that explain the place of human beings on the earth and ultimately in the cosmos. And then, in an age of apocalyptic terror, of climate crisis, killer robots, and, as in Faulkner's day, nuclear brinkmanship, it attends to the matters of spirit, albeit entirely in the negative. It offers its adherents a vision of humanity's significance, even as it calls for a self-flagellation. And finally, our suicide, which is true, as suicide is, in Canada. I don't know if you've look at Canada. Look at Canada. Suicides in Canada. It's terrible tragedy. It affirms humanity's special status even as it welcomes humanity's end. Like any religion, the new misanthropy. Why do I keep doing that? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. The new misanthropy says there is something more to which we may aspire, something grander than mere survival. Against the background of a dominant culture that has nothing to say about what the end of the human project might mean, what might be lost or gained, it steps into this nihilistic void and promises to its followers a land of milk and honey, one without people in it. Which makes it just stupid. But communism is involved in all of this as well. I just read an article recently about wanting to use brain-dead women as incubators. And I'll have to bring that up my next Tech Tuesday, but it goes hand in hand with this whole ideology. Suicide, they want the government to be in charge. Communists want the government to be in charge of everything, including healthcare. And now it's considered healthcare to offer suicide assistance. Somehow. So now think that the government is in charge. It's not private anymore. Care is not private. And the government can basically say you are unessential and you got to go because you're in their care. That's why privatized care is so damn important. That's why family, which is privatized care, according to radical communists. Moving on to this next article on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, straight from the World Economic Forum. This one's short because I'm just going to talk about the impact on people. That's highlighted right here. But the whole article is linked down below. I highly recommend you check it out. This is what the anointed ones have in store for us. This is the idea they have for the future. So if you have a different idea, we need to start speaking up soon because they're implementing it as quickly as possible so that we can't catch up and come up with our own plan. I think that's why they're doing it so quickly. They're very close to their goals. And so everything's coming out in the open. But here we go. The impact on people. The Fourth Industrial Revolution, finally, will change not only what we do, but also who we are. It will affect our identity and all the issues associated with it, our sense of privacy, our notions of ownership, our consumption patterns, the time we devote to work and leisure, and how we develop our careers, cultivate our skills, meet people, and nurture relationships. It is already changing our health and leading to a quantified self, and sooner than we think it may lead to human augmentation. The list is endless because it is bound only by our imagination. That's not true. It's bound by our imagination plus natural law. We can't forget natural law. We can try, but it's gonna hurt. I am a great enthusiast and early adopter of technology, but sometimes I wonder whether the inexorable
Inexorable.
Impossible to stop or prevent.
Inexorable.
All right, inexorable. Learning all kinds of words. I should write all these down, and in fact, I probably will write them down in my word notebook so that I can extend my vocabulary. Inexorable integration of technology. I wonder whether, so the unstoppable, that's what it's saying. I wonder whether the unstoppable integration of technology in our lives could diminish some of our quintessential human capacities, such as compassion and cooperation. Our relationship with our smartphones is a case in point. Constant connection may deprive us of one of life's most important assets, the time to pause, reflect, and engage in meaningful conversation. One of the greatest individual challenges posed by new information technologies is privacy. We instinctively understand why it is so essential, yet the tracking and sharing of information about us is a crucial part of the new connectivity. Debates about fundamental issues such as the impact on our inner lives of the loss of control over our data will only intensify in the years ahead. Similarly, the revolutions occurring in biotechnology and AI, which are redefining what it means to be human by pushing back the current thresholds of lifespan, health, cognition, and capabilities, will compel us to redefine our moral and ethical boundaries. Well, it's short, but it's sweet. It says a lot. The one I wanted to go over, let's see. Our sense of privacy, our notions of ownership. Now, not everybody, most people know about You Will Own Nothing and Be Happy, which was a video the World Economic Forum put out. And the notions of ownership in terms of merging, augmentation, merging man with machine, means that perhaps if you implant the technology, then who owns the technology? Do you own it because it's in your body, or does the company that produced it own it even though it is in your body? It's a huge, huge question that we must understand and ask, and I mean, that's why I would never trust a chip in my brain. because they could just say you own it. You buy it and you put it in your body, you own it, and we won't hack it or we won't try to get it back. And you are going to trust a huge corporation, a tech corporation, a pharmaceutical corporation. You're going to trust them. You think that's the smartest, wisest decision? The notions of ownership is a huge barrier. Huge. Everybody should be aware. They will own you. You put this technology in your body, and whoever owns the technology owns you. That's how it's going to work. This next article is European Academy on Religion and Society, EARS. I hope you notice that I don't look into the... How do I say this? The source is important. However, the information is way more important. And if the information has resources to look at and puts puzzle pieces together and you verify everything that is said in every article, and you trust yourself, then you know the source is the source. Your source is the source. I have never been to this website, so I am not promoting this website. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about it. So we're going to jump into it. The information is what's important here, and you can take it or you can leave it. Just like any other piece of information, whether it's from Forbes, New York Times, whatever rag you consider, or not rag, okay, whatever source you consider trustworthy. It's the information, not the source. Because somebody will think that your source is not trustworthy, and vice versa. So, sorry I got into a little rant. Didn't even say it very well. I didn't explain what I'm trying to say very well at all. But the information is what's important. That's all I'm trying to say. Coronavirus and the transhuman future. This was written or published 13 January 2021. While most of humanity is still in the middle of the coronavirus crisis, the highly influential members of the World Economic Forum have a plan for what should come next. It is called the Great Reset, and it envisions a truly transhumanist future for us all. The World Economic Forum is an annual conference where some of the wealthiest and most powerful people in the world come together for public-private cooperation. Since mid-2020, the World Economic Forum has been promoting its vision for our post-coronavirus future, which they call the Great Reset. In their view, the pandemic has exposed the weaknesses of our old system and therefore presents a perfect opportunity to reset our world and start anew. What is striking about this plan, which the World Economic Forum has condensed into a virus-shaped mind map, is its implicit endorsement of a philosophy called transhumanism. The term is not used explicitly, but its values and goals can be seen at every level of the plan. Now, according to some, transhumanism is not just a new philosophy, but a new religion that will be dominant worldview of humanity going forward. And I'm going to open that in a new link really quick. What is transhumanism? In a nutshell, transhumanism is a philosophical movement that promotes the view of the human species should take control of its own evolution through human enhancement technologies, such as brain chips and nanotechnology that reverses aging. This will then allow humanity to transcend its physical and mental limitations. The term itself was first coined in 1957 by Julian Huxley, the brother of Aldous Huxley, the famous author of the dystopian novel Brave New World. Which, by the way, Julian Huxley was, I believe, part of Club of Rome. He was mentioned in The Creature from Jekyll Island. So it's kind of fascinating that they would be privy to such information. It's pretty similar to reality today. Brave New World. Pills being the main form of compliance. Now, one of the three main goals of the Great Reset agenda is to harness the innovation of the Fourth Industrial Revolution to support the public good. As the founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, explains, the Fourth Industrial Revolution will lead to a fusion of our physical, digital, and biological identities. He specifically considers technologies that will change what it means to be human, because they will integrate into the human body and mind in order to overcome, transcend, their limitations. Sound familiar? As Schwab himself admits, these new technologies can also intrude into the hitherto private space of our minds, reading our thoughts and influencing our behavior. While these technologies seem like science fiction, they are nearly at our doorstep. In fact, much of the pandemic response effort relies on the Fourth Industrial Revolution technologies, such as genetic sequencing, vaccine biotechnology, mRNA and vector platforms, and contact tracing, mass surveillance software. Social distancing measures may have forced people to replace their physical world with a virtual one, including digital versions of school, church, shopping, and party events, and even parties. While this has been a terrible loss for most people, the digitalization of our lives, including COVID apps and digital currency, is part of the World Economic Forum vision of our future, and therefore, in their view, might be quite desirable. I'm going to go down to this. Transhumanism as a new religion. While approaching transhumanism as a religion-like phenomenon is already very revealing, some argue that transhumanism should be treated as a new religion in its own right. Yuval Harari promotes this idea in his book Homo Deus, where he defines religion as anything that confers superhuman legitimacy on human social structures. He distinguishes between two types of transhumanist techno-religions: techno-humanism and dataism, data religion. In the first view, technologically enhanced humans will replace biological humans, or develop a hierarchical class-based relationship with them. In the second view, humanity as such is replaced by new kinds of digital entities such as all-knowing, self-aware AI that has no more use for us. Yeah, right. In this future, data would replace God or human nature as the ultimate source of meaning and authority in the universe. Where does data come from? Stupid. Where does data come from? You think data comes from human beings? Again, read Stephen King's On Writing. He didn't create any of those. He discovered all his stories. He compares it to archaeology. And you can discover some beautiful pot underneath the ground, and you can carefully uncover it and have a whole beautiful piece of pottery from ancient times to study. Or you can, quickly get that pottery out and smash the hell out of it, and then your story's shit. But either way, you're discovering the pottery. You didn't create it. Anyway, sorry, getting back to this. A self-improving, super-intelligent AI, aka the singularity, would know us better than we know ourselves. How? When we put the data in, and we get the data from intelligent design. And would therefore function as a kind of omniscient oral or sovereign, to which we make humble offerings in exchange for the solutions to our problems. Perhaps Google and Facebook will become our new gods. They would love that. Harari seems to think it is possible. Well, he is an evil piece of shit. Sorry, don't like him. His ideas about hackable humans and all this, he doesn't put the soul into as a variable into the equation at all, and so all his equations are wrong because the soul is a variable, and so he's not a very good scientist. Transhumanist assumptions. The Great Reset and its underlying transhumanist views both rest on fundamental values and assumptions about reality. and these are not necessarily self-evident. The idea that we should always transcend our human limitations, or that human beings are nothing more than a collection of biochemical algorithms for survival and procreation, are highly contested. It is therefore up to each individual to decide whether they accept this worldview and its aims, or whether they wish to support the Great Reset agenda. I'm not gonna go over these articles, but just look at them. Okay, I see. They're both in-house articles. Oh, okay. They're both the same in-house article. All right. Last but not least, we're going to go over 12 biotech upgrades and augmentations that make up Human 2.0. Well, that will help us get to Human 2.0. Moving beyond our physical limitations with the help of our greatest strength, our brains. Well, that's debatable. We humans are beginning to blur the lines between biology and technology. What about the heart and the gut? I think that the trio, the gut, the heart, and the brain working together is maximum power for humanity. Our brains are just one piece of the puzzle, but there's so much focus on rationality in the brain. They're not thinking clearly. Isn't that an oxymoron? We can gain super strength with the help of electric exoskeletons, unlock doors with a wave of a hand, manipulate computers with our minds, and implant devices that help the blind to see and the paralyzed to walk. That always sound like miracles, don't they? Be careful. Be careful with these miracles. Ranging from devices and tech that are already available to those that are still in development, these 12 inventions are sci-fi come to life. So there's the exoskeleton. Powered exoskeletons, that reminds me of Fallout so much, are among the most sci-fi of modern prosthetics, at least in terms of appearance. Worn as suits, these exoskeletons, which have a power supply that aid in limb movement, can help assist and protect soldiers, construction workers, and others with dangerous jobs, enabling them to perform feats of strength that aren't typically possible. Calling to mind Iron Man or Avatar. They had those exosuits. The suits are mostly still theoretical, but some applications have already been carried out. In Japan, hybrid assistive limb suits are commercially available to medical professionals to help them lift and carry elderly patients. And again, this is in 2012, y'all. Where does it say it? Oh, up here. You can see 2012. So this was 11 years ago. I would have to do more research and see if powered exoskeletons now, I'm sure that has gone way beyond what that's showing. But still, you get the idea. This is just to throw you some rabbit holes, so to speak. You can go down these rabbit holes yourself and see how dystopian we can get. Retinal implant systems can actually help the blind see again, and scientists believe that they may actually be available for human trials within a year or so. The prototype pictured above, created by a team at MIT, works in conjunction with the special glasses fitted with a small camera that relays visual data to a chip mounted on the outside surface of the eyeball. The firing of electrodes under the retina could stimulate the optic nerve, allowing the visually impaired to see again. Yeah, and again, I can see how if you were blind, this technology would be an absolute miracle. But there's always a downside. You gotta be careful. That technology is owned by a company, once again. So what if they could just shut your eye off if you pissed them off? You said something they don't like and they just, you can't see anymore. It's a lot of reliance upon these companies. There's a lot of questions that we need to ask. RFID chips that unlock doors. This obviously 2012. This is old news. People know about RFID chips being implanted all the time. But just to use it for something as silly as opening your car door so you don't have to have keys. Like, really? That's the reason you would put a chip in your hand? Because you don't want to carry keys around? Think of all the downsides. Read a couple dystopian novels and just to understand the capabilities of the human mind in the negative. People choose evil. And implanting this technology when someone could choose to do evil with it is dangerous stuff. Alright, artificial organs. Yes, if you've ever known someone on a transplant list for a vital organ, like a heart or lung, you know just how harrowing the process can be. But what if, when organs failed, people could receive shiny new artificial replacements instead of live ones? See, this is sci-fi, because in order to replace a human heart, you have to understand how it works. And the same thing with a brain. Both are way too complex for humans to truly understand and then replicate. If you look at any neuroscientist into any of his research or her research, you will see they barely know shit, if they know anything at all. Everything's just a shot in the dark. It's all a miracle. It's all intelligently designed beyond our capabilities. I'm not saying we shouldn't try to understand them, but to think that we can replace a heart or brain is folly. We can't. And this terrible fear of death. Like, death is sad, but it's necessary, and it helps you grow and move. The ones that are living, it helps you grow. And the ones that die, they're recycled. They're back with the earth. They're back with intelligent design, God, whatever you believe. I don't know myself. Okay? I don't know. I know nothing. I know nothing. But the scientists know nothing as well, and so they're not going to replace a heart with a robotic heart. A tiny implant developed by scientists at MIT can be placed inside a tumor to monitor how it responds to treatment, giving doctors a less invasive and more accurate way to track its growth. Currently, tumors are typically monitored by biopsy, which is the removal of tissue. The implant could provide up to the minute information about the tumor's exact state, including whether it has begun to spread. Implants that track cancer growth. Look at how small that is. Now this, I can believe. I can believe that they can make this tiny little thing that can send information, yes. And the fact that they could do this all the way in 2012 should be very telling on what kind of technology they can make. Teeny tiny. Teeny tiny, you wouldn't even know. Bionic limbs. Extraordinary advances have been made recently in the area of prosthetic limbs, making them much more functional. New bionic limbs can be controlled by nerve tissue in the bodies of amputees, restoring movement to hands, arms, feet, and legs that have been lost. In fact, researchers have developed fiber optics that can connect these bionic limbs to nerves well enough to restore feeling. Yeah, and if that's true, that is absolutely amazing. And I can see the benefits of technology that is not questioned. Of course there are benefits. People being able to see that once could not. A huge benefit to society, potentially. You know, they can do something, they can create something that they wouldn't be able to create, possibly, without their eyesight. But, you know, pros and cons. And wow, that is very creepy looking. And regeneration of cells is something that scientists just don't understand. So you have this robotic arm, it'll never heal itself. That's a miracle. When you get cut and then the body heals itself, if you never thought about it, it's a miracle. We cannot replicate that. But you have a brain chip in your head, and then maybe you can feel your arm. You know, that I'm not saying that's not possible. It's just dangerous. Experimental devices that read brainwaves are enabling paralyzed people to use computers and may even help them walk again. In 2004, surgeons implanted 96 electrical sensors into the brain of 25-year-old Matt Nagel, allowing him to use a detached robotic arm to move a mouse cursor just with his thoughts. Sensors only slightly thicker than a single human hair can be inserted into the skull and sit on top of the brain, picking up nerve impulses and relaying them to prosthetics. Intel Corp believes that we could all be controlling our computers with our brains by 2020 with brain implants that sense thoughts. Well, it's 2023 and that hasn't happened yet. Now, we are getting closer and closer, but again, I think that we overestimate our capabilities. We don't really understand how things work, so then we think we do, and we implement what we think, and then it doesn't have the results that we thought it would have because we don't understand how it really works. We just think we do. It's absolute hubris. Energy harvesting implants. Unnatural everyday body movements like walking and breathing could be used to power our own devices like cell phones and heart pacemakers. Scientists are working on thin implantable rubber films that can harvest energy from these movements, refining the manufacturing processes that would allow them to combine materials with rubber. It's not clear how the energy would then be transmitted to devices. We're imagining plugging our iPhones into USB outlets on our arms, which is kind of disturbing. Yeah. TV screens for our retinas. Really think about the dangers of that. Would you really want a TV screen in your retina? At any time, an advertising company could just pay, override whatever they're seeing right now, as long as they're not driving, which they won't be driving. People won't be driving if they have their way. But yeah, the possibilities, if you have any kind of imagination, of terrible consequences for such a thing as TV screens for our retinas. Underskin LED arrays. Oh yeah, that's what we want. Ultra-thin sheets of LED arrays could be implanted under the skin, but unlike the contact lenses, the purpose of these lights would have nothing to do with entertainment. Researchers at the University of Illinois have created biocompatible polymers affixed with a mesh-like array of LED lights and photodetectors, which could monitor wound healing, diagnose illnesses, to control the delivery of drugs triggered by light. Why? Why? Because people might choose not to take the pharmaceutical drug, and that is a no-no? I mean, if you want to take a drug, you don't trust humans to just take it if they want to take it? Like, it's crazy. It's kind of like the key thing. Oh yeah, audio receiver Supertooth. A decade after it was introduced, wireless receivers in teeth still aren't exactly common, and most of us will gladly take Bluetooth over microchips in our teeth, thank you. But though it may still be in the realm of James Bond tech, the very possibility of turning your skull into one big signal receiver while your tooth plays music is enough to freak some people out. If you ask your neighborhood conspiracy theorist, he or she will probably tell you that you've already got one. Oh my gosh, stupid. Real life orgasmatrons? Though a little different from the retro-futuristic instant orgasm pod in Sleeper, a real-world orgasmatron does exist and could be on the market within a few years. A North Carolina doctor accidentally discovered that implanting electrodes into a patient's spine to treat chronic leg pain could cause a sensation of unexpected variety. Working further on the device, he held a trial wherein 5 women who had lost their ability to orgasm regained it. When implanted with the chip, the electrical impulses are sent with a remote control that allows users to change the timing intensity. Wow. Again, I feel sorry for the women that can't have orgasms, and technology that could help that be possible seems like a good thing. And if human beings chose to be good, then that tool would be used for good. But the way things are right now, with the death of God, you tell me, do you think that we would choose to do good with this technology? Do you think right now we're choosing to do good things with the technology that we have? Or do you think we're doing terrible anti-human things? And what's the point of Human 2.0 if you hate humans and want them all to die? It's all illogical. It is all anti-human. I don't agree with it whatsoever. I love humanity. I think life is very precious, and I hope you do as well. Now, I know things are hard for a lot of people, and I send positive vibes your way. I am going to leave off with a recommendation once more of To Be a Machine. Adventures among cyborgs, utopians, hackers, and the futurists solving the modest problem of death. Really good read, but again, it provides tons of rabbit holes. That's the real value of this book. It's written okay, you know. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but the information, the rabbit holes, worth a purchase. And then the other one that admittedly I just received, I pre-ordered it, just got it like a week and a half ago. It's called The Great Reset. And The Struggle for Liberty by Michael Rechtenwald. And this, I got this recommendation from George Gammon over at The Rebel Capitalist. Love his show. Definitely recommend checking him out. He's on top of this Great Reset on the economic side, the economy side. Yes. So, let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on Human 2.0, transhumanism? You for it? You against it? You think it's a religion? You think it's sci-fi BS? Let me know. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next